Some people are using them, they may access it. Front-end technology as well as back-end technology. The people who work on the front-end technology, they are called a front-end developer. The people who work on the back-end technology, they will be called a back-end developer. And the person who are expertise in both the side, they will call himself as a full stack developer because he is able to deliver end-to-end DB to HTML, everything he is able to deliver, right? So somewhere we are in and around it. So first we are getting idea on front-end part, how the front-end technology work with each other. Next, look into this diagram once. It will give you some better guidance. So as a user, when we want to browse any web application, as a user, when we want to browse any web application, right, we will use some kind of device. It may be laptop, mobile, desktop, tab, any kind of device. So I will keep here on front as a user. On front as a user. Next, this user wanted to open a web application. So what this user will do? This user will open any web browser that we call as a user agent, or different names are there in the market. So we will open any web browser, and after that we will directly interact with the web browser in our PC. Correct? We will interact with the web browser in our PCs. It represents that a user is going to interact with the any of the user agent that we call as a web browser. Then inside the web browser, we will enter the address of the website. Website will get open that we are doing in our day-to-day life. Okay. Next will be when we enter under the web browser and give some address, then website will get open, web application will get open. Then in that case, when you look into the current condition in the market, right? And the 10 years before condition in the market, okay? 2003, 2013, 2014, 2011, right? 2010. Those time there was no separate front-end developer and back-end developer. There was only web developer, okay? So I started my career in 2008 as a web developer. So till 2000, you can say 20, till 2020, 13 or 14, you can say there are no separate like web front-end developer or back-end developer. All people call it a web developer. Either you are a Java developer or PHP developer or .NET developer, right? The company was not splitting that you are a front-end developer, you are a back-end developer. When onwards it's happened, since 2013-14 onwards, Angular React become very popular. Okay. Then from that time onwards, the market splitted the role. You work in the front-end technology as a front-end developer, you work in the back-end technology as a back-end developer. So here, this block I have made, keeping in mind that here I am going to keep all front-end technology. Front-end technologies, I will keep under the first block. And again, we will understand this front-end technology first, then we'll draw another diagram for the back-end technology. It can be cloud-based or it can be within the server, depends. Now next, this browser is going to interact with the front-end technology. In front-end technology, again, we have so many languages. We will see who is going to take the place at where. So this become your interaction of the user via browser with your front-end technology. Now in front-end technology, I will keep the first step for this one, call it HTML. HTML. Because HTML is designed in such a way that can interact with the browser. It can be it can be any kind of backend language, no matter, but when the matter will come to display anything to the browser, To pass any message to the user or to collect any message from user, the browser only will come in picture, and for that purpose, HTML is responsible. HTML have the list of tags that is designed for input and output. So the first point I will write here, this become the input element, this become for the input purpose. This point is for the input purpose, and this point become for the output purpose. Processing will be done by someone else somewhere else. Okay? HTML cannot process your data. It is just going to take the input from user via browser and display the output to user via browser. Then again, user problem is user will carry two type of devices, three type of devices, mobile, laptop, tab, etc. HTML have a feature that it says like, I cannot identify your device. I cannot change the appearance based on your device. I cannot be the full responsive in all size of the window. Yes, I can take the input and display the output. Then market made a language, not language you can say. It's called a CSS, cascading style shift. Okay. The CSS is like, I have something that can deal with the browser, that can change the color of your page, that can change the look and feel of your page, but directly it cannot interact with the browser, CSS. Then the flow happen like this. Yes, CSS cannot interact, but CSS can interact with the HTML, and HTML will interact with the browser. Now both will merge together and come and execute in the browser. Now it will fulfill our both type of requirement. Either you open the web application in laptop, desktop, any device, no matter, it will work properly. And along with that, user happiness, color combination, you can say uh, design of the page, layout of the page will be controlled properly from here, from the CSS. Next, again in the year of 2011, Bootstrap introduced a library of CSS that is written in CSS, and that is called Bootstrap. Twitter has introduced. It's called Bootstrap. Bootstrap. After the Bootstrap, many other companies started making the library CSS related, and they are also in the market. But Bootstrap is one of the first framework of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript that for the responsive web page, device friendly web page. 2011 it came in the market, and it has made very good popularity, right? It has given so many formula, grid system, etc. Using that, we create our page in very smart manner. Without writing the CSS code, we can use this library and we can make it. So company allow in some project use the Bootstrap, some project they don't allow. So based on need, we will use it. These three subjects are going to help us to create a very good responsive web page. It will fit in all type of devices, but it will be static. It will not be dynamic web page. Yeah. Now, in order to make it dynamic, we required a language that can process our data. So for that purpose, we will study JavaScript. JavaScript is a programming language. It is a processing language. It is a client-side processing language. It is going to process the data. But JavaScript has no any GUI. JavaScript cannot design a layout. JavaScript cannot change the color of your page. Okay, JavaScript, of course, it can do the color of the page, but where it will change. So design is not possible through the JavaScript. That is called UI part is not available in JavaScript. How JavaScript will take the input from user? Since the UI is not there, then JavaScript is going to take the help from HTML, something like this. Okay. And again, JavaScript is going to give the output to HTML. So you can see HTML is on front, taking the help from CSS to change the look and feel, and taking the help from Bootstrap also based on it to design a like better page within less hour. Then JavaScript says like U3 has made the static page fine, but user cannot take the output based on input. JavaScript says like HTML, you bring the input from user and give to me. I will do the process and I will give the output you give to user. User will feel comfortable since it will become a dynamic work. Okay. So here assume like input came 10 plus 10, right? 10 plus 10, and here result become as a 20. Result become as a 20. 20 will come in the browser, right? So at this place, JavaScript did the processing work and JavaScript generated the result and sent to the browser. Now JavaScript says like based on the regular use inside the project, based on you can say common functionality inside the project. Some companies are there, they are working since last many years. So for their purpose, or maybe after looking into the 200, 300 projects, when they develop in JavaScript, then they understood, okay, in all the project, this kind of functionality is common that we are writing everywhere. Then many different company, for example, Google made Angular. For example, Facebook made a library called, you can say React, right? Other many other frameworks are there. So different company has made. Like then here question comes, how the uh, how the company thought like let me create a library called Angular. Let me create a library called you can say jQuery. Let me create a library called React. Right? See here, common need is like suppose you are working on a project. One project to deliver, you wrote JavaScript code. Second project also you deliver. Third project also you deliver. Like that, you deliver 10 projects. And as a developer, you saw like, oh, from the first to 10 project, some functionality is common. Some functionality is common. And I am writing the same code again and again. Then why can't I can create a set of code one place, that code I can use in all the project, upcoming project also and the past project also. It will save my time. Then the people started making a library of JavaScript that came in the form of jQuery, that came in the form of Angular, that came in the form of React, and many more. Okay. So here I will make just a small branching. In that I will say the first framework, the first very good popular library of JavaScript was jQuery. Still we use with Angular and React under the material. Second, we can write here called Angular. Third, we can write here called React. Okay. We can write in between called Redux also. It is also a library of JavaScript, right? Here I can write something called TS as a TypeScript. Now I will circle all. This become one part of JavaScript. This is another 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 part of JavaScript, right? These all are different type of framework based on experience functionality the company has made it, and these all are famous nowadays. Whenever we are going to develop a project, if you write the code manually, it takes long time. Since we have to develop all functionality in JavaScript, then company say like, why you are going to use all code, why you are going to write all code manually? React is there, use that. What is the meaning of React is there, use that? It represents that under the React, many functionality is ready-made that will suit with our project. Okay. So instead of rewriting the code, use that and reuse the code. When you are going to use Angular, why you are using the Angular? Because the functionality of your project is in such a way that is already exist in Angular. So no need to write entire JavaScript code again manually. It will take long time. Okay, so better than that, well-tested framework is exist. In that code is exist, it is well tested, use that and deliver your code fast. For that purpose, you are going to use this all. Okay. So under the JavaScript also this entire functionality can be done, but it will take long time. Company will not allow that much, right? So that we use the different type of framework to deliver our work fast, right? So this happen a basic structure of your HTML, CSS, Bootstrap, JavaScript, Angular, React, etc. Why I have made like this? Because React is a part of JavaScript, Redux is a part of JavaScript, TypeScript is a part of JavaScript, Angular is a part of TypeScript, jQuery is a part of JavaScript. So after learning the JavaScript, a person can go in any of this area. Okay. Next functionality is JavaScript has no capacity to store your data. It can utilize the browser memory to store up to 10 MB of data in browser memory. Okay. That we use in the form of local storage, session storage, or we use as a cookie, right? But that will be unstable data. That cannot be hold for always. Once we erase the cookie, everything will go. Once we erase the session, everything will go, right? So we want to find out some source where we can store this user input for future purpose. Then in that case, these languages are refused. It is saying like, no, I can process the data, but I cannot store for the future purpose. Then the concept will come of backend. Then the concept will come of backend saying like, fine, if the front end is not able to store the data, then take the help from the database and store the data in database. Okay. So for that purpose, we will be using another set of language called backend technology. Backend technologies. We will use a set of language called backend technology. Now in backend technology, depend on the infrastructure of your project, how it is. If your server is very strong, you can keep your backend also in the same server. If your server is not very strong, then instead of storing in your website, you can store the data in cloud. You can take the space from AWS. You can take the space from the Google. You can take the space from the Dell server, or we can set up our own server also, but in a different domain. That will work like as a cloud. So now what will happen? Here it will become as a data center as a backend. And then from the front end, we are going to push the data to the backend. How it will work? Let me guide you. So here in the backend, there will be two set of language. One is called database. Database. This database says like, I can hold your data. I can store your data for future purpose. Okay. Database is like, I can store your data for future purpose. But when we are giving this control to database to store the data for future purpose, then database will say like, I am in the very secure zone. Make sure that everyone should not reach till me. If everyone can reach till me, then there will be chances of destroying the data. So make sure that you keep me in the very secure zone, right? So for that purpose, what we do, we keep the database in the server side, right? And when we keep it in the server side, then directly everyone cannot reach here. But database is like, I can keep your data. I can keep your data also. I can keep someone else data also. I can keep everyone data here. Just make sure that since you are giving the data of many people, so you make sure that you keep me in the very secure zone where everyone unauthorized person cannot reach till here, else they will destroy your all the data. Okay, so this become the data. But question is where this data will come? User is here. User is sitting in the front end. User is facing the browser. User is giving the input to the browser. Now from the browser via HTML, this input will come to JavaScript. JavaScript has no any feature to communicate with the database. Then how it will work? And indirectly our target is take the data from user and deliver to database. JavaScript, jQuery, Angular, React, this HTML, CSS, Bootstrap. It has no any feature to deal with the database, and database has no any feature to deal with this language. Then market made another language that is called server-side processing language. Okay, language is called server-side processing language. Server-side processing language. Okay, market made is called server-side processing language. Okay, this server-side processing language are many. For example, I'll write few names here. Long back, people was using PHP also. People use Java also. People use Python also. People use Node.js also. Right? People use, you can say, uh, here called .NET also. People use C++ also. Right? Many languages are there that work in the backend as a server-side processing language. So when we talk about the server-side processing language, the server-side processing language never deal with the never deal directly with the, you can say, no, it will work in both the way. It has kind of two type of direction. It can take input from the front end and it can display, give the input to backend. Now see how it work. I will write here the next step. Like it's represent the roles of this backend language. Okay, this arrow mark represent that what backend is going to do. So we have heard that web service. So you can say here in the backend language, we will be writing now called web service. Okay, web service. It can be secure web service or it can be unsecure web service based on our project design. Okay, so this become a web service. Now you will ask what we are going to do in this web service. So under the web service, there will be different type of functionality, definitely. Authentication, you can say communicating with the database and many more work. So this web service will do the other stuff, and along with that, it will have SQL as well as it may have no SQL also. Depend on our database. If you are using the MongoDB, then in MongoDB, we don't have concept of SQL. We have no SQL concept. If you are using the MySQL, if you are using the MS SQL, if you are using some other SQL related database, then we have to use the SQL. Your backend language now, backend language through SQL, backend language through SQL or no SQL, it will communicate here. From where? Database. Maybe in the term of you want to send the data, or maybe in the term of you want to retrieve the data. So this represents the communication from the database. Who will do? Via SQL, this one. Which one? Web service. Next point is when we are saying yes, our web service is going to take care of the following work, and it is going to take care of communicating with the database and here and there. Then question is how it work again. Where the data will come. SQL is fine. It is dealing here. That is okay. All the language have a feature of writing the web service. We can write here. It will work. But again, how the data will reach here? How the user is sitting somewhere else. Data has to come here, right? Now this, I should write here one point called data or maybe response. Request first. The request, comma, the response. Okay, request and response. Whichever will be there. Sometime request will come to retrieve the data. Sometime response will come to pass to database, right? Then now assume this is running in different server. This is running in different server. Then we have to set up another point that is called API call. Just I'm trying to make a bridge between both the side, front end and back end. Okay, this bridge represents that from front end we can pass the data to back end. Yes, I made a small point. This point represent yes, our data is going to pass from the front end to back end. Okay. Now let me make it little more clean. It will be helpful. So this 2 point I will open here. And this 2 point I'll open here. And maybe I will join this 2 point. This point also I will open here. Right. And this point also I'll open here. This is going to represent the API call. 1 minute. I was supposed to join this line. It was not joining the first attempt. Right. Now somehow is okay. Okay. So join happened. Let me erase it and cut from here. Okay. So this, the intention to represent that the communication between front end and back end, how the data will come and how the data will go. Okay. So this become I have made the small mouth in the back end, a small entry point in the back end. It represents little validation part, validation and verification. Everyone can send the request, but only a specific request will be processed here based on validation process. Okay. Now, what is this called? This is called a API call. I will just write here call a API call. This API call is the way where we are going to communicate from the front end to back end. It may be in the term of sending the data, or it may be in the term of retrieving the data. Okay. Right. Now, what API call will do? API call will do like from the front end, we have to pass the data to backend. I will make little thing like from the front end, this React can send the data to backend via API call. Angular can send the data to backend, retrieve the data to backend, from backend through the API call. jQuery have feature called jQuery Ajax. Through that we can send and retrieve the data. JavaScript has a feature called fetch function API call. Through that we can send and retrieve the data. Okay. So this is called API call. Here the specific language, whichever have the feature to consume the API, that can consume the API by sending a request to backend. Then when the API call happen, how the data will go and how the data will come, I will keep here inside a point called JSON. JSON. Okay, JSON. JSON. JSON is called JavaScript object notation. It is a kind of container. Okay, it is not a language somewhere, it's a container that will help us to hold our data and deliver from one place to other place. People use mostly nowadays JSON, one option, or in some old project if you see, or already existing project that is made many years before, there people use this one called as a XML. XML. Okay. Through XML also we communicate, and through the JSON also we communicate. Okay. But in the case of XML, what will happen? We require little strong level of security. Since in XML we don't have direct security option, and in the JSON we have option. Encoding, decoding feature we have in JSON, right? So in this case, what will happen? Your data will be packed inside a JSON, and the JSON will go, or XML will go from the front end to back end and back into front end. I will make a double arrow mark here. It represent we can send in the form of JSON, And also I will make another arrow mark that represent we can retrieve in the form of JSON and XML. So this arrow mark represent sending and receiving. And finally, where the data is going to store under the database and where it is going to display in browser here. This is the final destination where data has to come. For that purpose, HTML is responsible, right? Next, right? So these languages will take the input, do the process, and through the API call, keep the data in JSON or XML, dispatch the data from front end to back end. Back end will have the web service. That web service will hold your data, validate the data, verify the data, if required, process the data, and then finally give to database. Based on database, which database we are using, MongoDB, then NoSQL. Apart from that, if any other database, then we have to use the SQL. Via SQL, our data can go to database and it can come back from the database, right? So this is the overall flow we are going to implement and we are going to get idea from the very beginning to last. Okay, from the very beginning to last. Right, so now if you want to take the photo, you can take the photo of this, or if you want me to correct something, give me your advice. I will just modify accordingly and will work on the same. Okay, so clear the flow. If you have any question, please on your mic and let me know. I will try to find out what can be the next solution.
Hello, sir.
Hello.
Sir, can you give a short summary of this one? A short summary of this one.
Can't hear you. Come up with a little more voice.
Sir, can you please give a short summary of this diagram?
Summary.
Yes, sir.
Just now I explained that was the summary only, no?
Okay.
Implementation we are going to do in the class, but this is the summary of entire syllabus.
Yes, sir.
That what you are going to implement. Whichever the website used in the market, all are the summary of this diagram. Okay. Any website you see, everywhere you will see the result of this diagram. A person who is working in the market as a maybe full stack developer on Java or full stack developer on PHP or full stack developer on Node.js or maybe only front end developer also. I don't feel something else is doing apart from this. Right? Some person told like he's working as a testing engineer, someone who Rohit, right? Rohit or someone else?
Yeah, it's me only.
Rohit as well as, if I'm not wrong, Abhijit is also working somewhere.
Yes, I'm working.
Right. We require your input. What do you think? You are working as a backend or front end?
I'm working as front end.
Front end, right? In front end, which language you are using? JavaScript,
JavaScript, jQuery, and SQL. And
jQuery,
in the
and
backend, .NET is being used.
right. So do you call the API?
Yes,
How you communicate? XML or JSON?
few nowadays what API is being built, that is JSON format, but old one is XML format.
Right. After that, from the JavaScript, you and jQuery, you do the get, post, put, patch, delete, etc.
Yes.
Right?
We also test also in
Hmm.
Postman.
Postman plus we have many REST client. We can install in VS
RESTful
directly.
API. Yes.
Better than Postman, it's
Hmm.
easy to use the REST client. REST client will
Okay.
give you clean idea. No need to
Okay. REST client. No?
REST client. In REST client, you can create everything.
Oh.
Okay. And in the Postman, you have to follow their structure. Okay. And in the this one REST client, how you have designed the backend, in your own way, you can test through the REST client.
Okay. That is the application. No? Like Postman only.
Like similar.
Oh.
Okay, next.
My another question is like NoSQL you told no in backend and
No
database.
SQL, huh?
So for that also API call is required. Or in MongoDB you
100%.
can directly fetch the data, right?
The MongoDB, if you are using the MongoDB is a database.
Uh,
Okay. Database, how it will give you a secure API? Database cannot give a secure API. For that purpose, you have to take the help from any of the processing language. Okay. MongoDB have a lot of functions.
mm,
Because of that, you are not going to write any SQL. MongoDB has a lot of functions for all type of communication from the any of the language. So there you are not going to write a SQL, but that function you cannot expose directly to front end. Okay, there will not be any kind of security level here. To apply a security level here at this place, you have to use any server-side processing language that can control who are you. When the request come from the front end, it should know here, know who are you, what you want, right? Based on that, it has to take the data from here and pass here. So for that purpose, server-side processing language is required.
and for Node.js, Node.js is a language or in that we have to use Express. Yes.
Node.js is a JavaScript. Okay,
Ah,
it's a design on based on V8 engine. V8 engine says like I can execute the JavaScript in the backend also. Okay, so you can consider Node.js is the backend language.
mm,
Okay, it's a JavaScript, but it will execute in the backend. But when you are writing the code using Node.js,
mm,
your code will become too long.
mm,
Code will become very lengthy. Okay, now to reduce the complexity of lengthy, to write the reusable code.
mm,
Okay, what we use? We use a framework, and
mm,
that framework is called the Express.js.
okay,
Okay, Express is the framework of Node.js. When we write the code under the Node.js, when we create the API through Node.js, our code length will get increased. It will become very complex on
mm,
large application. Then in that case, to customize it, to make it reusable, to sort the code, okay, right, to simplify the code, we use a framework, and that framework is called the Express.js. That is also JavaScript code only.
mm.
Okay, right. So without Express.js, your Node.js, it is going to work everything, but it will be like little lengthy code. You will feel like, oh, I'm writing so much of code to do some simple functionality. Okay, so there we use call directly which one? Express.js. And